What's up, summoners? King Blair here. Today, we're going to be talking about the current banner heroes, Mordelex and Elena. And can I just say, before I talk about the skills or anything, these units, in terms of looks, are amazing. Elena's new skin is just absolutely gorgeous. I already bought it, and I'm going to build Elena just for the skin. She is also pretty good. And Mordelex, I mean, come on, look at this guy. A dragon that just looks amazing. The way he looks at you, the piercing gaze, it's just, oh man, it looks great. It looks great. In terms of looks, they're amazing. But how do they pair up in game, and should you pull for them outside of their looks? So if you like the video, make sure you like, subscribe, and join the Discord server. Link down in the description. But without further ado, let's jump right into it. As always, I like to start with the summary of the whether or not you should pull for the particular unit. Let's start first with Mortelix. So yesterday, if you guys didn't know, I was over at the Cabbage Patch. And if you guys know Small Cabbage, he's a Husbando only player. And he has gotten Mortelix, triple SS, gotten everything. So go check out the video if you want to see Mortelix in action. And as far as the build that he used for his Mortelix, it's right here. One of the best Mortelix you'll see. Triple SS, amazing defensive stats, amazing critical hit damage. It's just solid all the way around. So what do I think about him after having fought the Mortelix several times, and one of the best Mortelix you'll see? What do I think about him? Overall, he's okay. There's nothing crazy about him, and he feels like he came too late. His role as a tank buster and someone that stops like those tank teams has fallen off a lot because of the RTA changes, making aggressive team compositions better. So in terms of RTA, he's not as strong. In Guild Wars, he can definitely shine against Relo Lights and Kraus, so he definitely has his role. But overall, he's just an okay bruiser, nothing insane. And I would honestly not recommend them for early game players because he's actually extremely hard to build and make use of. The build you just saw is with an I-90, triple SS, insane gear requirements, and he just does he does his job, but it requires so much for him to do that properly that I would not recommend him for early game players. On the other hand, Elena is a really solid support, and again, with RTA changes, RTA healers like Elena have fallen off a little bit, but she's still really good as an anti-cleave unit. So if you hate cleave, she actually does a pretty good at anti-cleaving, and also lets you do some really cool arena offense teams with Seaside Bellona if you don't have a Crimson Armin, right? So if you don't have a Crimson Armin, Elena can also give you that invincibility you need to do a slow cleave, and those are pretty fun. She's also a really solid matchup against certain units like Seaside Bellona, and there's other fringe matchups, and in PvE, she's also pretty solid. So Elena, a lot more solid. You can definitely make use of her. I don't use mine, but I used her once for one Abyss stage. And overall, she's a good support, right? So if you're missing supports, you can definitely pull for her. But I will say neither of these units are a must pull. And Wonder Tenebria is coming potentially next week. So make sure, if you're thinking about it, wait a little bit longer, see if they put any announcements, and then decide. They're not must pull units, and they're both not limited. So overall, if you like them, pull for them. If you don't, it doesn't hurt, right? So it's like, and if you're a competitive player, you don't have to pull either, but it'd be nice to pull like Elena for at least, right? So let's look at the skills. I don't want to make it sound like Mortelix is complete garbage and Elena is not that great, right? They're both really good units. But let's take a look at Mortelix first, because that's the one that you guys are probably here and are probably like, how is he doing? What do I think about him? So the health and the defense, if you guys didn't know, he is going to be a knight, and he's earth. I do not know why Smilegate made him an earth unit. He should have been water, and he would have been so much better as a water unit. So it's kind of annoying that they made him earth because he does not look like an earth unit either. I always think he's water. But the health and defense, it's the same stats as Charles. Health and defense is a little bit lower for a knight. Attack is a little bit higher for a knight, and the crit rate is like amazing for a knight. The imprint is going to be critical hit chance, which makes his, if you got an SSS Mordelex, kind of crazy what you can do with the imprints, right? Because you can just put so much better stats on him, kind of like Cabbage did in the Discord. All right, so first I'm gonna try to do the skills and then show where you can where you can use them and overall thoughts on him. In terms of looks though, he looks amazing. Look at this spear attack though. Like, look at the spear attack and look at this X3. Like, skills aside, he looks amazing. Like, he's one of the better designed heroes in Epic 7 in terms of animations and everything, especially idle animations. Sometimes Smilegate slacks on these S1 animations. They did not slack on this animation. So okay, what does he do, right? How are the skills? S1, overall, nothing insane. Decreases defense 50%. That's nice, right? It can come in handy. What's really nice about it is when you have that rage debuff, as you saw up there, you ignore effect resistance, allowing you to hit targets like Roller Lights, allowing you to hit targets like Elena's and Ross's. This is also the reason why a lot of people will put him on Elra's Sword, because you don't know, Knights have access to the best artifacts in the game. And you can easily put him on an Elra's Sword and make use of this S1, potentially getting some really nice S1s as you go, and getting some really nice decreased defenses, especially on an Elra's Sword. Getting an Elra's Sword decreased defense is really, really solid. Very similar to Cecilia, except that he can ignore effect resistance. So, if you want to think about it, kind of like following Cecilia, and we get to see the S2 right there that we'll talk about in a second. So, the S2, immune to stun and sleep. One thing you have to realize is this does not make him a complete counter to control. If at all, it just helps. Because the thing about it is that control can still provoke you, control can still decrease defense you, control can still attack break you, control can still glancing hit you. RB can still put glancing debuff on him. And you do like very little damage on a glancing hit. Right? So, yes, this is good. I'm not trying to hype it down. This does counter units like a Tywin's S3, but not really a Tywin because a Tywin can still provoke him. And Sage Ball and Sasan, this one's kind of annoying because I actually use Sage Ball and Sasan a lot. And I can't sleep this guy, so I kind of have to accept that he's going to be taking his turns if I use it on my sleep team. Tenebria, to an extent, he can't be slept, but Tenebria is fire and can decrease defense and then just kill him the next turn, potentially, right? But as far as the other stuff that it does, is it increases critical hit resistance only for 1 turn though, and his own speed for 2 turns. This 2 speed does allow him to lap a lot more. The problem with this skill though is that it's only a 40% proc rate, and you have to land a crit rate to trigger it. So if you're not landing crit rates, you're not getting the skill, and even if you land the crit rate, you may still not get the skill, and it can only be used once every 2 turns. This is why Elra's Sword is kind of needed on him, because you need him to be proccing Elra's Sword to have a higher chance to proc this S2. The only thing is that this unreliability makes it not as good of a skill because it's only 1 turn of critical hit resistance, and depending when you get this skill, it can either be really, really good if you get it right before their damage dealer goes, or it can be really, really bad if you get it right before your team goes, because then it's like, okay, this is kind of wasted, and now you can't get it for another 2 turns. But then you do get the speed still, so very unreliable on both the S1 and the S2. Kind of unreliable in terms of landing. Now the S3. This is probably the more unique skill, and the skill that you most likely are going to be pulling for. This skill is an AoE attack that when you soul burn it, does increase damage. The damage you do if you injure the opponent up to 15% of their max HP. So, you want to have the skill do at least 15% of the enemy's max HP to do injuries. Essentially what injuries does is it permanently deletes that unit's HP. So if you have a Ruel, for example, Ruel is one of the units that he counters extremely hard. If you have a Ruel and you S3, Ruel, let's say the Ruel is 20k HP. If you do the S3 on the Ruel and you do 4000 damage onto the Ruel, so if you do 4k damage to the Ruel will be at 1600 HP. 15% of that Ruel's 20% is now injured though, which means that up to 3000 of that HP is gone. So she's at 1600 HP, but her max HP is now 1700, which means that if Ruel S2s herself afterwards, she's at 1700. And the thing about it is that that is going to be their new HP pool, so HP scaling skills are affected by Mortelix injury. So if you use this skill on a Ruel, which is probably like a really good Ruel counter, and Crow, because Crow will be doing less S3 damage, or even Emo Crow if you land this, because Emo Crow will be doing less damage on the S3, or even units like a Apocalypse Ravi, you are destroying their HP, so doing less damage, right? So that's what it does, and it's essentially up to 15%. If you don't do 15% of damage though, you're not destroying the HP. So if they have defense buff, and you do the same S3 on a Ruel, and you only do 1k damage, you're only injuring 1k health, right? So it's a skill that makes him extremely stat hungry. So what I think about him, he is extremely stat hungry. He needs to do damage, he needs to be fast to make use of this skill, he needs to be on Elra's Sword to be able to make use of this skill, he needs to have good luck to be able to land this skill, and to also be able to trigger this skill. He needs to have high damage, and he needs to be tanky, or he just gets deleted turn 1 and does nothing. Because the S3 damage is not that crazy. The S3 damage is actually on the lower side. It's not going to be one-shotting units like it's nothing. at all. It's just a skill that does good damage, and it can injure a lot. So overall, in PvE, you can actually use him in raid, right? Especially for the hard raid queen. You can definitely use him because of this skill, because you're able to decrease defense and he's unable to be stunned and slept by the queen. So very solid against the queen, right? And you're able to like do a lot of damage and apply this and just keep attacking and doing some pretty nice stuff, right? With the S1. On the other hand though, as far as PvP, he looks really solid for Guild Wars. In Guild Wars, there are still a lot of units that rely on HP scaling. Think Royal Light. Again, Royal Light is the big one. And units that are revived keep their injuries, making it easier for you to kill them again afterwards. Also really good for those stall comps. Anytime you see a team that's kind of stally, that has a lot of units that rely on HP, like those double crawl teams, this is pretty nice to start reducing the health total and reducing the health pool, making it a lot safer for you. So Guild Wars, very solid. Has a lot of potential in Guild Wars. For RTA, he feels like he came too late. Because with the new RTA changes, the meta has gotten more aggressive. Fights don't last as long, which means that Mordelex is not going to be able to use this skill to its full potential, because the fights are typically already over before this skill makes a big impact. The initial hit is really nice, but it requires you to do damage, and there's unit like if there's a Ross or Fallen Cecilia, you're not doing that damage. Especially with Fallen Cecilia, you don't do injury. Right? So it's kind of like, it feels like it came too late. In the last meta with Emil Haste, Crow, a Tywin, all these different super tank comps, he would have done amazing, but those tank comps aren't as popular anymore. So he feels like he came too late for RTA, but will maybe be a gatekeeper in the future. So he does have potential in the future to be better as the meta progresses and if we go back to a tankier meta. But as right now, he's just okay for that. And for Arena, he's also just okay, right? It's a little bit slow, and if you're cleaving, and cleaving is the way to go in Arena for most things. But if you're not cleaving, it can be really nice against those tank teams, because over time you do a lot of injury. And you watch Cabbage's video, the stream that she made, because it was very solid. You could see in the Arena against those tank comps, you were able to slowly destroy their HP and make FCCs very smaller, and it's a kind of a nice support, right, for Arena. So all in all, what I think about him, he is okay. If you're an early game player, I do not recommend him though. If you're even mid game, you're not going to be able to get that gear requirement that is necessary to get to see him work. He's a counter pick unit that you're primarily using to counter tank teams, and even then there are other units that can do that as well, like Landy. And he can be a support to someone like Landy to be able to destroy some of that HP and then be able to cycle with his own speed and being able to just do a lot of work with the Aura Sword. But overall, he's okay. If you like the way he looks and you think you can make him work, by all means, pull for him. He's not absolutely useless. He just feels niche and a good counter, right? So if you are willing to make him work, he can definitely work for you. If you're expecting a game-breaking unit, he's not that game-breaking unit. So that's all you need to know about him. For Elena, since she has been out for a while, I will go slightly faster on her skills and everything. And I don't have a sample build, so sorry about that one. But her speed is a little bit on the slow side at 103. Her HP is also a little bit on the low side, but the defense is really, really good. This defense is really, really solid, and she does start with some effect resistance, which is really good for her kit. As far as Awakening, she does get even more effect resistance, making her a lot more annoying. So very, very good FRES unit. So what does she do? S1 is actually one of the better S1s in this game. It dispels 2 debuffs. Dispel 1 debuff each from 2 allies. So you're able to dispel a lot with this skill. This skill is actually really solid in terms of support because you're able to dispel a lot of debuffs. If you soul burn it though, it dispels all debuffs. So the soul burn is pretty nuts against control teams. And she does do really, really good against control teams because she has that high starting base FRES. So again, pretty nice, right? So this, pretty solid, right? Being able to just S1, get that hit, and then cleanse 2 debuffs. This is why people like to use her in counter set as well. Now the S2, I won't be able to show it, but this S2 is just really, really freaking solid. So what does it do? First, it reduces AoE damage by 15%, right? So 15% AoE damage reduction, which is really good because typically when you put a Soul Weaver, you lose damage mitigation, right? Which sucks. But with Elena, similar to Emil Haste, you still keep that damage reduction effect while having a support rather than a knight. So it is really nice to have that damage mitigation. The other thing that it does is that every 2 turns when you receive the AoE, she does an AoE heal that increases health. What's really good against about this skill is that it counts as a skill that heals, that is a non-attack skill, which allows her to use something like Angel's Tome, and Angel's Tome gives her a 30% CR push, which is why she's so good at countering Cleave. So we'll talk about the last skill and then talk about where you can use her. So the S3 attacks all enemies, doesn't do that much damage, but gives you invincibility for 1 turn, which is really solid, and increases F-Press for 2 turns on all allies. This skill looks really gorgeous with the new skin. The new skin just looks really, really good with like everything. She looks like a Christmas unit with the new skin. But essentially, when you do this S3, you put up an invincibility, stopping the opponent from doing damage, and the F-Res increase makes it harder for opponents to land debuffs on you. So we're talking about a unit that probably has like 150 to 200 F-Res starting that can get a buff that gives her an extra 50% F-Res. So where can you use her? She's actually a really, really good PvE unit because she's a really solid support in terms of dispelling debuffs. You're able to constantly dispel debuffs on this S1, making her a pretty good option for a lot of raid stages. Even for the Asimacon, she can actually function because she's able to just cleanse debuffs like it's nothing, heal, and just do a lot of work. All for raid as well, she's a very solid raid unit, and for abyss stages, there's one abyss stage that makes a lot of use of her. Where else can you use her? For arena, she's really good at setting up slow cleaves. What I mean by a slow cleave, if you have a fast Elena and they have an AoE unit, you can put her, Seaside Bellona, BBK, and Sinful Angelica, and you can use this skill. Cut away all the damage that they're going to do to you. Let them take their turn, and then they're not doing any damage to you because of this invincibility, and then you just win the fight from there, right? So that's pretty nice. And as far as RTA, she's a really good counter cleave because, as we mentioned, if they do an Athletica S2 and you have an Elena, she's gonna push up by 30% because you have to have her on Tome, of course. So if you have her on a speed set like 240 speed, she can cut into almost any cleave with this S2 heal plus the push up from her artifact. So artifact makes her considerably better, and you kind of do need the artifact to do the speed build. If you want to go for more of defensive Elena, you can also put her on counter set and make her a really good counter to control. If you put her on counter set, she's able to counter and cleanse some debuffs and be really, really annoying against the opponent. So overall, very solid unit in terms of anti-cleaving and anti-control. But yeah, now let's head to the summons, and we'll see if we get Mortelix. Because I do want to have all the units in the game, and I do want to pull for more. Let's go check it out. So we're gonna be doing the summons now. This is spliced from the other clip because I was just too excited. It just dropped. I want to get these summons in as soon as possible. So the worth it should be done. Let's just get to summoning and let's just burn through these 20 bookmarks. So the first one will be a 50, and then we will do the 5s. So first 50, kind of sus. Kind of very sus. Can we get 1 lightning? Now that's all I want, bro. Just 1 lightning. Bro. That was tragic. Bro. What's going on, Smilegate? What is this? Alright, let me buy 1 of these and then do 1 last 10x summon, and then we'll see where we are afterwards. Alright, there's the shiny. Dang. That was kind of sucks. Alright. Oh, I forget that it doesn't just go straight to the big summons if you don't click on it. Man, very bad rates today. Let me do 1 more. Let's just do 1 more, and the rest I'm gonna have to grind for normally. Alright, last one. Let's see if we can get them. Man, these 10x summons is like 10 times faster to depression, bro. Yes! 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 We got him, coach! Didn't have to go to pity. Let's go! It's always a good feeling. I'm stopping right here, bro. Alright, so all that bad luck was just setting us up for the good luck. So that's nice. It's nice. We got him. We got him, coach. Got him. Alright, we're done. We're done. But yeah, thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed. I'll see you next time. Peace.